Hello, I'm Dr. Melissa Lopez-Larson, and joining me again today is a good friend of mine and my own personal trainer, Kevin Rail, who is here to talk about how to avoid the weight gain associated with the coronavirus isolation, or what I like to call we're trying to prevent the gaining the COVID-19, as opposed to the freshman 15.
That's exactly what I've been calling it. That's hilarious.
So, we're all kind of stuck at home. We're all not moving much. We're all starting to feel sluggish. We're getting kind of bored. There's tons of food, more so than ever before in our pantries. So I'm reaching out to you, Kevin. So how can we all avoid gaining weight and overeating in this time of just stress and, loss of connection to the outside world?
Okay, well, let's first address the actual problem that's happening, the dreaded COVID-19. And when I say the COVID-19, I'm talking about the 19 pounds of weight gain that we're possibly subject to.
Right.
So to me, I was thinking, it's interesting how this went a really weird direction and route. Because when this whole quarantine thing started, like when I took it seriously, when everything started shutting down, and that's when I started digging deeper. And I'm like, wow, this is legit. This is serious now. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not even gonna bat an eyelash. I'm gonna just get my gear out of the gym, and I'm gonna grab my resistance band, set up some home gear, and I only need a big enough amount of space that I can fit my long body in to work out, and I can stay ripped to shreds for 100 years. Not everybody has that same discipline. Not everyone has that same type of tenacity or knowledge or physical literacy, as I've said to you before. So immediately within days, I started talking to friends. I started talking to colleagues, people across the country, my friend from the Caribbean even. And what I instantly started noticing was people were like, oh my gosh, I've already gained 2 pounds. Oh man, I'm blowing my diet. I've been throwing it out the window. And I was thinking the other opposite would happen. Scarcity mode would go in, and people would be like gung-ho to clean up their diet, to change their diet, to become more healthy, to start incorporating a fasting protocol and learn how to do fasting correctly, because they're not at work where piles of donuts and pastries and sundries are around them where they can easily access it all. Because they're not going out to restaurants and eating lavishly, I thought the opposite would happen. And au contraire, was I mistaken. It's gone the complete opposite way, where everyone is falling off the wagon, gaining more weight, throwing their diet plans out the window, throwing their fitness plans out the window, becoming sad, becoming anxious, suffering from alienation anxiety, thinking the world's coming to an end. And I'm like, holy Toledo, what happened? We lost control, we lost grip. So I think it is never too late to change that game completely. So personally, on a personal level, the past 2 weeks, I feel like right now I'm in better shape than I was a year ago at this point, when I had complete access to the gym and I could go to restaurants, and I could go to bars, and I could do all the regular things. And perhaps for me, it's because I'm not going to restaurants and bars and everything else that I've been able to get in better shape faster. So in my mind, maybe I was able to go through what I expected everyone else to go through, but no one else does or did. Now, this is a very real thing that's happening, and I'm kind of surprised. So let's kind of put this in perspective. If we just did something as simple as cut our eating window down to 8 hours, ate between like 10 and 6, 11 and 6, somewhere along those lines, 11 and 7, and we only ate twice a day. Think about the food bill. So if you're eating like 6 meals a day, if you're eating 3 meals and snacks all day long, and you're going to Costco, and you're going to Smith's, and you're going to Whole Foods, and you're stocking up your buggy because you think you're not going to be able to get to the store again for 100 years, sans the toilet paper, that's a whole nother story, which we're not going to go into.
Oh, no.
It's already been done and being to a pulp. We haven't figured that mystery out yet. But food in general, let's think about this. If you're concerned about an economic downturn, if you're concerned about losing income, losing your job, and all these other things,
right?
Do you really think buying massive amounts of food is going to help your cause or hurt your cause? That's my question.
Yeah.
Now let's flip the switch and let's go down the path of fasting. And if you went to a 2 meal a day structure, strict, and you're worried about losing weight, let me rephrase that. You're worried about gaining weight during this coronavirus and the dreaded Corona-19. Don't you think if you were able to shift gears and cut the food intake down every day, eat in a fasted time frame, you would save money on food. That would reduce a little bit of the economic stress. You would start to lose some weight. It would give you more confidence. It would make you happier. It would improve your brain function. And when you do fasting, even after 12 hours, your body starts going into fat burning mode. because you use up all your glycogen. And your brain function starts going up. Your ability to concentrate starts going up. And your ability to think straighter during this coronavirus goes up. So you can come up with solutions to any problems that are put in front of you through the medium of fasting. So I guess basically the direction we're going here is, I guess I all of a sudden just became a lobbyist for fasting.
Right.
Not that that was my intention, but it just kind of makes sense to me. We're talking this out right now. This is how you problem solve, people.
Right.
You find a reliable source and you just start talking about things. So in my mind, this is a perfect time to incorporate something such as a fasting protocol.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
And how does one get started? I mean, you don't want to just start, only eating in an 8-hour window and then fasting for 16. You probably want to start with like a 12 and 12 cycle, or what is your recommendation?
That's exactly what I recommend. Start out with 12 hours. If you've never fasted in your life, don't even try 16, because it ain't going to happen. The first time I did a 16-hour fast, I almost chewed my arm off in the middle of the morning. I made it, but it was the hardest day of my life. I'll never forget it. I was always doing a form of fasting, but it was never more than 12 hours. I always worked out in a fasted state because I knew the benefits of having a high HGH level going into a workout, because it helps build lean muscle mass, helps get your body fat adapted. It does a lot of things. It's a biohack. So it basically helps reverse the aging process. However, when I work with people specifically on fasting, I always default everyone to 12 hours first and just get that going. Because some people don't even pay attention. They're like, yeah, well, I get up in the morning and I have a bagel with cream cheese. I go to work and then I have a snack in the morning and then I have lunch. Oh yeah, and then I have a power bar at 3 in the afternoon. And then I have dinner. Oh, but I also have some popcorn at night, but it's low fat popcorn and it's blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, so you ate all day long and you're eating in an 18-hour window and you're fasting for 6 hours. Pretty much, that's what you're telling me. Well, yeah, maybe, 8 hours, and they're adding it all up. I'm okay, let's just default it. Let's start out by eating between 7 a.m., 7 p.m., 3 meals a day, no snacks in between. Can you handle that? And people are like, yeah, but I like my snacks in the middle of the morning. I'm like, okay, well, take your snack in the middle of the morning and shove it either to your breakfast or your lunch. And then eat that meal, and then you're good. So any snacks you're eating in between, just divvy them out to a meal time, not a snack time. Can you do that? And people are like, oh yeah. So then they do that, and they're like, wow, I was so full because I took that middle of morning snack and I shoved it to my breakfast that lunch came around and all I had was a small salad with a chicken breast on top, and I was so satisfied, it was unbelievable. So then all the epiphanies start to occur. So baseline benefits of fasting, even if you fast for just 12 hours, you're still going to get benefits. So I would suggest a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 3 meals, no snacks in between. That's your starting point.
Okay. And then every week you just increase your fasting time by, say, an hour?
Yeah, I would suggest every 2 weeks even.
Every 2 weeks. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, give your body time to adapt and adjust. You don't have to rush it. Like, it's like if you're learning kettlebells or you're learning Indian clubs or you're learning body weight, calisthenics, like a bunch of different types of pull-up exercises. You don't figure those out immediately. It takes weeks, it takes months, it could take years. And fasting should be a long-term thing that you want to incorporate into your life, a long-term lifestyle change. So I always suggest people go in 2-week increments to get a good handle on it. And oftentimes they go a few days and they're like, man, that was so easy. I started fasting 13 hours instead. I'm like, great, you're ahead of the curve. Not everybody has that discipline. Yeah. And anytime over 12 hours, the benefits just start climbing. The fat burning goes up, the brain function goes up, the detox of the body goes up. Once you hit the 16-hour mark, like autophagy starts kicking in. Not massive, but it does. It starts. And that's a very important aspect of cellular detox of the body, because we create negative cells in our system that clump together and cause disease, and they cause inflammation, and they cause brain function abnormalities. They raise the risk for disease and all these things. And autophagy literally means cell death in Greek. Is it Greek? Not Greek. I don't know what the language is. Another language, not American, but it means cell death. Latin. I think it's Latin.
Latin, yeah. Yeah,
so your body produces negative cells when it goes through the production system, the mitochondria do. So autophagy is when your body cleans up those cells.
Exactly, right. So we all have cells that are just malfunctioning or not doing very well, and they're hanging around too long. And so autophagy helps get rid of those kind of failing old, crappy cells that we just need. They're like kind of like junk cells that we just don't get rid of as we should. And this helps kind of increase that so that all the cells we have in our body are like high performers and, really functioning at their best.
Yes, that's right. Cell turnover is a good way to put it, or junk cells. I like the word junk that you used. We do build up junk cells, And by getting into autophagy, we get rid of all those junk cells.
Yeah.
So it's very therapeutic. And the longer you fast, once you hit like 24 hours of a fast, your autophagy starts going through the roof. And when you hit 48 hours, it's like 300% higher than at normal. But even when you get to the 16-hour mark, you start scratching the surface of it. So you're getting that cell turnover every single day. So just think about the long-term effects of that. If that's all you did and you never incorporated a longer fast in, you get massive benefits. So you want to aspire to get to kind of that mark right there.
Right, right. And then I know sometimes you even recommend people fast, maybe a 24-hour fast once a week, or even a 48-hour fast maybe once a month, but not too much more than that. But I mean, what is that about right?
Yeah, I would
recommend.
It is always dependent upon what your overall goals are. If you want to do hardcore weight loss, then you need to go with an aggressive protocol. So I would suggest something along the lines of a 16-hour fast daily, and then 2 24-hour fasts a week, and then 1 48-hour fast a month. And I'm talking, that's aggressive.
Right, right.
And you build your way up to it. And there's a whole mastery science that I've built and figured out on how you can get there. And again, it takes a while to get to that point. When you do a 24-hour fast, there have been studies done in rodents that show that your microbiome, your gut health basically, improves by like 110% in just a 24-hour fast, because your stomach produces a ton of stem cells. And for those of you who don't know what stem cells are, they're the healing cells of the body. We hear a lot about platelet-rich plasma treatments these days, stem cell treatments, all these different things for knees, elbows, shoulders, the list goes on and on. People with neck, back issues, all these different things. There's a lot of validity on that, but you can undercut the system and go 100% natural by boosting your own stem cells through the medium of fasting. So when you come out of a longer fast, such as 40 to 48 hours or more, and you start the refeeding process, your body gets a natural, huge stem cell dump. So you can literally heal injuries that have been nagging you forever. Like I was able to get over my plantar fasciitis a couple of years ago by doing a series of 48-hour fasts and monthly time frames. So when you go all the way to 48 hours, you get a huge amount of autophagy, a massive stem cell dump when it's over with. So if you're specifically looking to try to heal old injuries, sore elbows or knees or whatever, through the medium of diet and fasting, then that protocol will be different than someone who's looking for massive weight loss really fast. Because my regimen, and I'm lean muscular. So someone like me, athletic, lean, muscular, work out every day of the week, I don't want to do too many 48-hour fasts, too many 4-day fasts. It's not even healthy. It's dangerous. So you have to know exactly what you want to do, and then you just build your protocol around that. So if some people want to hit, like they want to lose weight, and that's their main goal. So someone like that, I would say, okay, and they ask me questions. Can I have coffee? Can I have tea? Can I have XYZ while I'm fasting? Because I read somewhere that you can. I'm like, what's your goal? Do you want to hit autophagy really hard, and do you want stem cell dump really hard? And if they say, yes, that's what I want, and that's all I want, I'm like, okay, no tea, no coffee, no nothing. Water and sea salt, that's it. And if someone says, I don't care necessarily about the autophagy and the immunity function and all the blah, 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 I just want to lose weight. Can I have tea and coffee? I'm like, sure, have it. Don't put sugar in it. Don't put cream in it. Don't put anything in it. So you have to figure out what your goal is and then take it from there. But just like everything else, autophagy can be overdone and it can be dangerous.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like if you're thinking about fasting, maybe they should talk with someone who knows how to get you started on that. And maybe that's not something you want to kind of take on by yourself necessarily, without getting a little bit of education around it, getting some support from somebody like you who's an expert in it, or something to that effect. Because, I think fasting is fantastic, but if taken too far, not done correctly, could actually not be a great thing too, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like exercise. I was an addict years ago. I had a massive case of orthorexia, eating disorder, and I was exercising way too much. And I was able to surrender to that. I overcame it, and I know the pitfalls of it, and I know how to deal with it now. But fasting can be the same way. When you get into those longer fasts, mind you, yeah, it's beneficial, it's great for you, but your organs basically they don't go into autophagy, they go into atrophy. They start breaking down because your body is like, they go into like hibernation mode basically, but they actually start breaking down after a while because they're not being utilized. So just sitting in your system. So just think about that. If you multiply that times, if you do 48-hour fast once every week, that can take a toll on your organs after a while.
Yeah.
And honestly, the average person probably shouldn't do a 48-hour fast definitely not more than once a month, in my opinion. And I mean, I've talked to certain experts that say you shouldn't do that more than every 3 months even. Yeah. So you've got to be careful, because it can be a fine line. Something that's good for you, you got to find out what's best for you. But in general, there are basics with fasting, and you don't want to overdo it. And I also want to mention that I'm not going to mention the person's name whose video I watched or content I read about last week. I disagree with what he said. I don't disagree with him as a human being. He seems like legit, and he seems like a good guy. He's a pretty well-known doctor. But I hear info from people all the time about fasting. They're always sending me stuff saying, what do you think about this? What do you think about this guy? And blah, blah, blah. Honestly, it really is the wild, wild west, if I was to say anything. Doug Orchard said that to me before when he interviewed me for his film, for fasting, actually. And I took that to heart, and I figured out what he was talking about. And it really is the wild, wild west. There's expert after scientist after doctor who all have a different opinion. But what I do is I default all the opinions, and I go, what makes the most sense? And what common stuff do all of them talk about? And that's what I accumulate, and that's what I practiced myself. And I figured out what works best for me. And then I figured out by working with other people what works best for them. And I'm like, again, someone who's trying to lose weight is going to be different than someone who's a triathlete. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you got to figure out what works best for you. And back to the guy that was talking about the coronavirus, he was suggesting, do not fast right now. It's the worst time to fast because your immunity gets compromised. And I'm like, well, you know, back in December when I did my normal monthly 48-hour fast, I had a cold. I had scheduled my fast on a certain day, and I woke up the day before. I was going to bed the night before my fast, and I just felt like crap. I had a sore throat coming on. I'm like, oh, man, I'm getting sick. I was miserable. I woke up the next day. My first day of fasting was horrible just because I was sick. I woke up the next day, and I was like 50% better already. And I was like, that's cool. So I finished my 48-hour fast, and I got through the cold in half the amount of time that it normally takes a cold to come and go, which is usually 2 weeks.
Right.
So I put that in my memory bank, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Because one of the benefits of fasting is it does boost your immune system. However, what this guy was saying was after 48 hours, your cortisol levels start to rise, and it impedes your immunity. Now, I don't particularly agree with that, because if your cortisol levels were to rise, you would go into fat storage mode, because that's basically what happens when your insulin's always getting pumped. But your insulin levels are so low when you're fasting that your HGH levels rise and they keep going up. And HGH is an immune booster. And it's also quintessential and super beneficial for building and maintaining the muscle mass. So when I do longer, I did a 4-day fast last month. And as the days went on, my aerobic capacity was gone and my lung capacity was gone just because I was so carb depleted. However, in my workouts, I felt jacked and I felt ripped. And I lost like 12 pounds in 4 days.
Wow.
So if my cortisol levels were high, then I would be in fat storage mode and I wouldn't be able to burn fat.
Right.
So what he said just does not resonate with me. It does not make sense. And I have not heard anyone else in the world of fasting say anything even closely similar to that. So I'm not convinced that is the truth. I do know that a lot of factors can contribute to your immunity being compromised, like lack of sleep is the biggest one. Stress, yes, is a big one. That will raise your cortisol levels.
Sure, absolutely.
But if you're homebound and you're calm and collected and you're just sitting back, sipping water and eating sea salt all day, I just don't see how that could be a negative thing during the coronavirus. In my opinion, I am not a doctor. I'm not a scientist, everyone, so don't shoot me. Dr. Larson is, though.
Well, and I think, you have to take that with I mean, if somebody's already under high levels of stress, perhaps doing, more than an extensive fast would not be a good idea because they're already stressed out. And if fasting stresses you out, then you may not want to do it for very long, right? So, you want to kind of take it as a case-by-case basis, but you're right. If you're like, chilling at home and you're feeling fine and you're not that stressed out, then you can probably do a little bit longer fast. So do what kind of works for you and your body and what feels good to you at any given moment, I think is probably a good place to start.
That is very sage advice, and it is right on the money. And also, I'll take it one step further. And if you are aiming for, say, even a 16-hour fast for the first time, an hour 14 comes and you start getting super scared and you start getting super nervous and super stressed, guess what happens? Your cortisol goes up and then you're in a danger zone. Right. So the minute you feel that stress and anxiety, just eat. Yeah. And then consider it, okay, I got to 14 hours, bookmark it, and then come back to that same time frame for X amount of days in a row until you feel you can go a little bit longer and you're not as stressed.
Right.
And that's how you do it. It's like a gradual wean in process, and it could be magic for you, and it can be fun too.
Yeah.
I think it's fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so we talked a lot about fasting today, which I think is fantastic. I think it's kind of a nice time to think about that, as we're all wondering, how we're not going to gain too much weight, and to try to kind of monitor our eating and maybe save a little bit of money and not have to run to the grocery store so often. But is there another tip or something else that you feel is just as important to make sure we don't gain the COVID-19, so to speak?
Yeah, I think finding a good human connection with somebody is critically important. Even if it's through phones, text messages, Zoom calls like we're doing right now. Anytime you feel like, find a good compatibility partner that you can turn to in times where you're going to go to the cupboard and eat. And most of the people that were talking about their overeating, they weren't even hungry. They're like, I'm just bored, or I'm just XYZ. So find the replacement for the food. Is it talking to someone close? Is it hugging someone you know that lives with you, or someone that's safe to hug? Is it going out to the park? Is it walking your dog? Is it reading a book? Is it watching a documentary film? What is it? Find out what it is. The best thing is movement. I mean, you just can't trump it. Exercise. Now especially, the people that are throwing the diets out the window aren't doing much exercise. Oh, I can't go to the gym anymore. Well, that's a cop-out. Like I said, I've got about 10 by 10 square feet of space to work out in, and I feel like I'm in better shape now than it was a year ago at this point of the year. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. And it doesn't have to be complex or anything. So absolutely start your day with exercise. I would say start out in a fasted state. Work out first thing in the morning, fasted. And that's going to take you a heck of a long way in your goal to not get the COVID-19. You're actually going to go the opposite direction. You can lose weight. Now's the opportune time to lose weight, in my opinion.
I think you're right. And I think, we may have the same excuses, but hopefully not as many. Because we're home, we don't have to travel to work. We do have our families here, so that might be a little bit prohibitive, but we hopefully will have more time to make the time to care for ourselves. And that includes exercise, watching what we eat. And I always tell people, if you find you're overeating, why don't you journal before you eat and think about, am I really hungry right now, and write it down? Or what is the other feeling that's driving your desire to eat that bag of Doritos? I know they are delicious.
I won't even deny that. I haven't eaten Doritos, and I have healthy alternatives to everything. So I haven't eaten actual Doritos in so long.
Yes.
But they were yummy. The Cool Ranch Doritos, I had a good many bag of those when I was a little kid. Yeah. I'll admit it.
Yeah, but I think we just have a lot more carbohydrates and kind of food that we could find on the shelves, really, that would you think that might all of a sudden. Yeah, I felt guilty if I went to the store and I was like, oh man, I haven't had this in a while. I'm going to grab a box of this cereal, and I'm like, what am I doing? This is silly. So we shouldn't really change our behaviors or our patterns. Try to stick to our good diets and making healthy choices, and fight the temptation to grab that box of cereal that's full of sugar and the bag of Doritos and chips and snacky foods. Because in the end, we're not going to be very happy come summer if we keep an eye on things right now.
And I even have a remedy for the binges too. So you can work out a let's not use the word punishment. That's a negative word. A compromise system with yourself. Every time you reach into the bag of Doritos, you owe yourself 10 push-ups or 10 squats or 10 chair dips.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every time you reach in there and eat. Or you count the amount of Doritos or whatever it is that you're eating, and you do X amount of reps per Dorito. And if you don't like push-ups, and you just ate 20 Doritos, and you're doing 2 push-ups per Dorito, you owe yourself 40 push-ups. Or find someone to hold you accountable for that, even better, like I told you before about the human connection.
Yeah.
Find a mate and be honest with them and say, look, I'm trying to avoid my eating habits and blah, 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 blah. And tell them what you're doing. And then they have them check up with you. And if you have a conscience and they call you out and they're like, hey, did you have any Doritos today? How many bowls of ice cream did you eat? How many tablespoons of ice cream? Oh, you got me. I had blah, blah, blah. Then you owe some exercise to yourself and to the person that you're holding you accountable. Yeah. So turn it into an opportunity right now. Like I said before, whenever there's something bad going on, there's an equal good thing out there swimming around, which is no more than an arm's reach away ever. So you just got to locate it and find it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, these are all great advice, all great tips. So if people had more questions specifically about fasting, because, whenever people ask me about fasting, I point them in your direction because I feel like you know a lot and you know how to get people up and started and get them through the process. So how could they reach you and find out more?
You can find me through email at krail@restoreyourfitness.com. And also I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, on all the social media channels. Just look me up, Kevin Rail. I'm easy to find. And I also highly suggest you all see Fasting, the documentary, because there's very great information in there from all the top researchers, scientists, and doctors on the topic as well. And that's actually on Amazon Prime. It's called Fasting.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, if you have any tips or questions or suggestions, please send me an email or ask your questions on Facebook. And remember, if you can be of help, please do. And if you need help, please ask. And we should all be a source of support and be supported at this time where we all desperately need that. So take care and have a great day. And until tomorrow or our next tip, I'll see you later. Bye. And thanks again, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks everyone.